Welcome to another episode of Two Beers. Well, I've Red Bull this morning because it was a late viewing last night. So, two beers, one movie, but it's one Red Bull, one movie, and we're going to be discussing finally Matt Reeves' The Batman. So last night I saw a late screening of The Batman. So hyped, so pumped. It was on my list of one of the most anticipated films of 2022. And it lived up to the hype and then some. It is quite possibly the most detective Batman film ever. And we always got bits of detective Batman throughout each series. Nolan gave us our best interpretation of this detective throughout the three movies, but it still had a bit of that blockbuster feel to it. Where Nolan's films were very, very grounded compared to previous Batman films or Affleck's interpretation in the Justice League or Batman versus Superman. Nolan gave us a very real feel to Batman in a real world situation, where this almost goes one further. This feels even more real than any of the Nolan films. I'm not saying it's better or worse, but it just feels more realistic. It's obviously it's co-written by Matt Reeves and it's directed by Matt Reeves. It's starring Robert Pattinson, Colin Farrell, Zoe Kravitz. It's starting everyone really. Paul Dano as the Riddler. John Turturro as Falcone. So yes, as I mentioned, it's a real gritty neo-noir styled detective film that just happens to have a world where a guy dressed as a bat, obviously. The script is so good. It's well paced. You will not think it's almost 3 hours while you're watching it. It is so gritty. Where the Joker almost, I wouldn't say steal, but it almost borrowed from Martin Scorsese's Taxi Driver and King of Comedy. This really takes from David Fincher's, who's also one of my favourite directors ever. It takes from Seven and Zodiac. Paul Dano's Riddler is murdering politicians, police, crooked politicians, crooked police, and his messages about no more lies, about how the city is corrupt, and he's sending these messages to Bruce Wayne, Batman, who's working with Jim Gordon to get to the bottom of this. And there's other plays happening around the city, such as Zoe's. She's trying to find out where her friend is, or Selena Coyle's trying to find out where her friend is, who's gone missing. She's working in a club with all the mafia bosses, such as Colin Farrell's Oz, which is Oswald Cobblepot's Penguin, Falcone, and it's really, really, really gritty. The story is really grounded, as I mentioned. The huge set piece action scenes are kind of held back. There's one car chase with Oz. We see in the trailer as well. There's a couple of fight sequences, and there's obviously a big action scene there at the end. But a lot of it is grounded in more detective work, and where it brings to this grittiness of Seven, of Batman coming into crime scenes, and with Gordon. The police are obviously, well, some of the police are against him. He's a freak. It's year 2, obviously, of Batman's journey. It doesn't really give us anything new in terms of the arc of Batman or Bruce Wayne. Robert Pattinson is amazing in this, by the way, and I knew he would be anyway. He's a fantastic actor. People were just placing him on this Twilight fucking pedestal type thing, and just, no, he was a great actor. Everyone is great in this, really. there was no standoutish performance such as The Dark Knight in terms of how great Heath Ledger was. No one really stole that spotlight. It was almost shared among the cast. Is it as good as The Dark Knight, which I believe is the greatest comic book movie ever made? Possibly on par. Before I get to the end of this, I'm not going to give this a score because I'm unsure of what score to give it. And I know I'll end up seeing this another 2 or 3 times before I give a final score, similar to The Dark Knight when I watched it. They gave The Dark Knight 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10. It was sublime. This, I think, after more viewings, it will probably be on par. Paul Dano's Riddler is really, really good. It's really, he borderlines on almost like a horror villain at times. It takes a couple of things from The Dark Knight which uses really well, and it's almost in a world that Joaquin Phoenix Joker could be involved in, but he's not. I'll get to that at the end, so there will be a slight spoiler, so you can switch off, and I mentioned before that. But it's not going to be in Joaquin Phoenix's world, but it could be. That's how grounded in reality this movie is. The action sequences are great. The fight sequences are great. When it happens, as I mentioned, there's a couple of scenes that are kind of mirroring The Dark Knight. The fight with Batman in the nightclub. There's a couple of really good moments in here that not callbacks, because it all comes together as one in the comics as well. In terms of the score, you still obviously have Kurt Cobain singing throughout, and it kind of dwindles all the way through, and you can feel it rumbling. And then you have the main Batman theme. It's kind of rip-roaring through each scene when it's put in there with some kind of classical orchestra music as well. It's really played and kind of blended into the whole vibe, and it makes it a real kind of an eerie gothic atmosphere. And there's no way is the Batman this emo as what they were calling him. There's no way at all. There's a reason why he has, like, you'll know when you see it what I'm talking about. He's definitely not a gothic. He is fighting with his demons. He's not living up to this playboy life. He's hidden away, much like Bruce Wayne's Batman in The Dark Knight Rises, but Roberts he's in a younger stage, but he's still hidden away. When he does show his face, it's a big deal, which is very, very rare. He's not out with the women and the fast cars. He's tormented by helping this city. He's tormented by his past, and the Riddler is almost sucking him back into his past of his parents dying with what's happening. The end of it really like it's chaotic in a good way at what actually happens and what the Riddler does. It's similar to a way of the Joker in terms he gets a following. Obviously there's no social media in the Joker because it's based around the 70s, 80s, where this is based in modern era, and there's like it's really clever how they stick him in a Twitch live stream and he gains lots of followers, and the ending all comes together in terms of having all his followers kind of standing by his side. I won't really get into too much detail to let people watch that for themselves, but that's similar to what happened to the Joker, where he has his own following. Maybe the Riddler has more done this on purpose and by design, where the Joker's kind of in Joaquin Phoenix's world is kind of just stumbled upon a following almost, especially against the rich. This has a kind of a feel to this as well. It's just like there's a like a line of like just another rich person who's gone, whatever, something like that. It isn't R-rated, but there is a couple of scenes that there's some foul language in it as well that isn't R-rated. There's a couple of scenes that really not graphic, but you can feel the thuds of Batman's punches, and it's really, really good. The fight scenes are really good. The detective scenes are just so Seven and Zodiac, and you will feel it when you see it. In terms of the ending, so it's spoiler now, so you can switch off. Barry Keoghan's Joker does slightly appear at the end of at the end of the film. Paul Dano's Riddler is put into Arkham Asylum. He's beside himself. He is distraught that his plan has not worked. Why has he been put here? Whatever. But he is having some sort of like nervous breakdown in the cell. But he's kind of being almost spoken to in a motivational speech by someone that's next to him. That someone next to him is the Joker. You'll know by his crackling laugh at the end of it. I'm unsure how I feel about it. Obviously, there's going to be a sequel, but we'll see how that one plays out. In terms of the overall film, I thought it was absolutely fantastic. I still have no score yet. It's definitely going to be between a 9 and a 10. It's one of the best comic book films I ever seen. One of the most realistic comic books I ever seen. Everything about it is great. It just doesn't have a standout performance like The Dark Knight did in terms of Heath Ledger's Joker. That's not a bad thing because it's spread out wide. It does have a more realistic feel, as I mentioned, a more grittier gothic feel. And it is the most detective Batman film you'll ever probably see. So yeah, go see it. It's great. It will not disappoint. It's fantastic. Breathe now. So please like, subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next episode.